Hey everybody, King Kamakaze here, bringing you a new review, this time on The Godfather Part 3. So, I went into this movie not really expecting a lot because the Godfather movies have been on the internet for a while now, and what I'd commonly heard was that the Godfather fans don't like to mention Part 3 because apparently it's like really bad. So, I was like, okay, how bad can it be? So, I did go into the movie expecting really low, and pleasantly, it wasn't as bad as I thought. I don't know. It's a bit weird because I expected the movie to be absolute shit, like the drop in quality is like this, but it wasn't like that. Surely it is not as good as The Godfather 1, definitely not as good as The Godfather 2. And if you take just those two incredible movies in consideration and then you look at Godfather 3, it's basically one of the worst endings. Like it's a really bad movie to cut off a trilogy. But I'm looking at The Godfather 3 as a individual movie, and it's really not that bad. So today we're gonna be talking about what I did like about the movie, what I didn't like about the movie, and yeah, my in the end I'm gonna give a score based on what I think. So let's start with what I did like about the movie, as I've written here. I do like the closure we have to Michael Corleone's story. It wasn't necessary, to be fair. Like, I think The Godfather works amazing as a duology. I think it just works. Like, it didn't need a full stop to Michael's story. Like, part two kind of gave that full stop. Even the director, Francis Ford Coppola, like says so that The Godfathers are a duology, and he believes this is the epilogue. I mean, technically, it's still part of a trilogy now, but he said so. So that was really nice. I do like how we finally tie up all these things. We see how Michael kind of lives with everything, and we do see how it ends. Like, we see an actual end to the Michael Corleone story. What an incredible story, all the way from The Godfather Part 1. Part 2 obviously had a major Michael storyline, and then ending with Part 3, which is, I think, great. I think it was great to see old Michael in this movie, right? This movie set, he's about to turn 16 this movie. I believe this movie is set in 1979. I think 20 years from Godfather Part 2. Correct me on that. But it's really nice. I do enjoy the fact that we get to see a older Michael, a wiser Michael, someone who is living through the guilt, who, spoilers if you haven't seen The Godfather Part 2, ordered the killing of his brother. And like, he's not ruthless, like he's human being, and things are coming back to him. Like, he's trying to let go of the dirty life, he's trying to legitimize all the business, which is so funny because at the start of The Godfather Part 2, Kay asks him, like, you've been saying this for the past 5 years that you're trying to legitimize everything. And he's like, I'm trying. And the thing is, now he's almost succeeded, but wherever he goes, he's donating to all these charities, but they still associate him with the mob, which I think was very fun. And yeah, towards the end of the movie, like, Michael's not being an asshole. Like, if you have watched The Godfather Part 1 and 2, Michael's always thinking something. There's always something else behind what he's doing. It's never, I'm doing this for the sake of this. There's always some other plot which is happening. But in this movie, it doesn't really feel like that. And it's not like that. Don't forget about feeling. It's actually not like that. Towards the end of the movie, Michael's just being a good person. He's a good businessman. He confesses his sins, and that sort of makes him free from everything. He's reconnecting with his wife. He apologizes to her. He's being a great dad to his kids. He hands over the godfather status to his, I guess, son-in-law. No, his nephew. No, his nephew. So Andy Garcia plays Vincent. I forgot his last name, but he becomes a Corleone, and then he becomes the new Godfather. So he plays Vincent, really handsome man. I am so, I like to fanboy over some good-looking men. Nothing wrong with that. And Jesus Christ, he is good-looking. And yeah, that is Vincent. I do like Vincent's character as well. I feel like I will talk about the cons of this movie. This is not a perfect movie, right? I'm just telling what I liked about the movie. Vincent and Michael are good characters in this movie. Yeah, Andy Garcia does play Vincent nicely. I like Vincent's character. Connecting back to Sonny and all. It's kind of sad that Fredo has no one. But yeah, Al Pacino doing a great job as always. He absolutely kills it. Great acting, not the best acting. Like, you wouldn't say, yeah, this is Al Pacino's greatest performance ever. But he's doing a good job. I mean, here's the thing. I don't know if he's actually acting his ass out. Clearly not. I don't know if he's actually acting well, or is it because the acting in this movie is so bad compared to Al Pacino that I feel like he's doing a good job. But I feel like he does a decent job. Might not be his best. Definitely nowhere close to The Godfather 2. That movie is absolutely phenomenal from a movie standpoint or acting standpoint in Pacino's performance. But he does a good job in this as well. He's Al Pacino. He kind of, you can put him in any movie and he'll do a good job. He can't really give a bad performance, if that makes sense. And even though this movie was made, like, I believe the first Godfather was made in what, 1972, and the second one was made just 2 3 years later. This movie was made in 1993, or released in 1993, right? And even though it's made so many years later, I think it does capture the whole Godfather vibe really well. I think it does a good job of capturing it. And I honestly thought, yeah, you know what, I don't need to know it's connected to the Godfather. Like, if I just watch it and I get the vibe of it, I get the aesthetic of the whole movie, I'm like, you know what, yeah, it's a Godfather movie, which I do appreciate. They were able to recapture that. Obviously, in the 1990s, I don't assume it was very hard. Like, it's not very hard to do it if they did it back in the 70s. But it was nice. Unfortunately, that is where the pros of this movie ends for me. Again, very pleasantly surprised that it was not a shit movie. Like, I genuinely was expecting the absolute worst movie I've ever seen in my life. And it was like such a stain on the Godfather legacy. It's not a good movie, that's for sure, but it's not a bad movie as well. But we are going to talk about the cons now. What makes this movie not anywhere near the first two Godfathers? We can start with, I think, the main problem which many people have about this movie, and I understand why. The acting is just not good in the movie for something like Godfather, especially considering the thing is, you come off part two, like you're not even coming off the first Godfather, you're coming off Godfather part two, which is such a good movie. And I can truly understand why people don't like this movie as much because it doesn't live up to even half of what part two was. The acting is really bad. Of course, Sofia Coppola, the director's daughter, who plays Michael's daughter, Mary, ah, it's really rough. I'm no professional actor, okay? Like, I'm not a professional actor, but I feel like I can criticize her. Maybe not. Maybe I would have done horrible as well. But God, they really, really couldn't get anyone. Apparently, they went through a lot of people. I read that. I forgot the names. They went through a lot of different actresses. I think Jennifer Garner was supposed to be Mary, which would have been great. But it would have brought some sort of performance to the movie. Sofia Coppola just is not good in the role. And even disregarding Sofia Coppola, like, all the acting is very, you don't really get to see acting. Like, Al Pacino is absolutely carrying the movie with his performance. You have Andy Garcia, who, his resting face, okay, his resting face is, it's a smile. Like, someone dies and he's like, do you see what I mean? Like, that's his resting face, and I can't really say, oh, that's bad acting, but that's Andy Garcia's resting face. He's just, listen to me, uh, Connie, what the fuck is Mary, like, bam bam, you know. It's stuff like that, and I can't really blame him because if that is the actor's resting face, you can't be like, hey, don't do that. Do something else. You can't really say things like that. But yeah, the acting in this movie isn't standout at all. I- okay, I think that's why people probably don't consider Al Pacino's that well. Like, if I'm talking about acting, I'm not going to say Al Pacino's acting will make you remember this movie because he's doing a good job compared to everyone else because he's fucking Al Pacino. But it's not something you'll remember again. Like, I will probably remember Godfather 2 and 1 more than I'll remember this movie. And even if I do remember this movie, it'll probably not be for all the good things I listed earlier, right? Uh, the plot was fine. There's at times too much shit happening where I don't know if I'm stupid. I probably, right? Maybe that's why I feel like it's too much. But there are times where I'm like, man, you really didn't have to do so many different things. And it's not like it's overlapping. It's not like it's three different storylines kind of merging together in a weird story orgy. It's nothing like that. But I don't know, it just doesn't feel as crisp. Like the fact that part two had two overlapping storylines, one past, one present, but the fact that it didn't feel like it was that mix up, it felt like separate things which kind of slowly melted together like butter in your mouth. It felt good. And I think that is where most of the complaints of this movie even come. If this was a standalone movie, you know what, it's not a great movie, but it's watchable. But because it has been put on the mantle of the Godfather movie, this is the last Godfather, and it is the last Godfather. There's no more movies after that. Paramount still owns the rights. And you're like, this is the last movie. Like, I can't imagine being a fan of the Godfather and seeing it come back after like almost 20 years. And then this is what you get. Like, I can completely understand the disappointment, right? Like, I completely get it. This is not a good movie to follow up something as spectacular as The Godfather 2. Let's talk about the ending. Wait, are we talking about the ending? Yeah, let's talk about the ending. It came out of nowhere. The movie is 3 hours long, which, by the way, too long. Like, this movie is 3 hours long, which is also one more thing. The original Godfather I felt was long, and I still could appreciate it because it kind of gave you world building, right? I appreciate that. World building is important. Some movies do that a lot. Lord of the Rings did that. Like, that's fine. Godfather 2 was also long, but I really liked the Godfather 2 because the first half was very well paced. It wasn't as slow as Godfather 1, and I was invested. Godfather 3 kind of goes back to the original Godfather where it's just slow. But the difference is there's no world building. There's just a lot of things happening, but it doesn't really matter. Like, it's just long storytelling. There's not a lot of word building. Word building. There's not a lot of world building. And it's just there. And I'm like, yeah, this is happening, that's happening. I don't really care that it's happening, but it's happening. So I guess I have to watch it. Right? It's just like that. And the ending came out of nowhere where Sofia Coppola, like, I don't know, it's like, oh, someone tried to assassinate Michael. Michael gets wounded, and then the fucking daughter gets. How did she get shot? Like, is who they hired an assassin who promised he would never miss. And guess what? He fucking missed. He shot Michael, wounded him. He somehow stormtroopered his way and killed his daughter. Huh? And yeah, spoilers again, Mary dies. Oh, boo-hoo. I'm sure there's 1 out of 10 people who really, really care about Mary. I did not feel any emotional weight. And then we cut to a really old Michael at the end where he's sitting alone in his chair, and he's super old, and he basically dies on the chair and he falls over. And I'm like, okay, we get it. It's such a tragedy, the death of Michael Corleone. It's a really sad thing, like, damn, this is how it ends. He died alone. But why did he die alone? That makes no sense. Why did he die alone? A he was being a good person in the end. You mean no one was around him? Did he isolate himself? He was a great father to his son. I can understand if Kay didn't want to come, right? She would never forgive him for letting the daughter die. I get it. The Connie didn't come, the sister didn't come, even though throughout the movie we see that Connie really, really loves Michael and wants to make sure she stays with him throughout his years. Huh? Why did he die alone? Did he isolate himself? We don't know that. Like, oh, I'm supposed to imagine, like, oh yeah, he probably got so overcome by grief that he decided to leave everything and die alone. It's just, how did you get a 3 hour movie and still manage to rush the ending? I mean, I'm used to that. Obviously, I've like Indian movies, I'm used to that happening a lot. Again, the fact that it's on a mantle called The Godfather, and that's how you treat it, that's kind of like, really? That's how you're gonna do that? So I did feel the ending was rushed. One more thing I was noticing, um, my recording got fucked up, but I was noticing one thing which I didn't mention is that there's the opera scene. It's a long, drawn out opera scene where Michael's son is the lead singer. It was great. I really liked the opera scene. Vincent orders the killing. Like, if you've seen the first two Godfathers, how the first Godfather ends, how the second Godfather ends. Here, the last scene isn't the killing, but it's very similar. Like, a bunch of people get killed. Yeah. So, and that is done through opera, which is really nice. I did like the opera scene start to finish. I think the opera itself was great. I don't know what play they were showing. I'm sure it was his I'm sure it was historically accurate. Not so sure about what else was happening. There was some devious shit in that play. I enjoyed it. I felt like I was at an actual opera, and that intercut with things actually happening, like all these important people slowly being knocked out, being killed, and all of that shit. The assassination of the new pope, all of that. I won't get into details. Watch the movie for yourself. Like these are just reviews. Especially this is a review. It's not even like a summary. So, and yeah, I was just like, I like this scene. I like it. And I think that's what kind of made me like, okay, it's not as shit as people told. Because there were some moments like the fact that if you saw my Thor Love and Thunder, I basically spoke two sentences about what's good about the movie. And I basically started shitting on it. Here I can actually kind of feel a balance between the both, right? So I think that's great. But that was just one of the things which I forgot to tell because I feel like I should mention it. I really enjoyed the opera scene. I probably my favorite scene of the movie, if I'm not lying, right? And yeah, oh yeah, there was a weird, there was a weird cousin love angle. Vincent fell in love with Mary, Michael's daughter, and Vincent are cousins. They fell in love, vice versa as well. They both fell in love with each other. I wrote that in the end after I decided to end my review. Like, that is so weird. Like, why? You're telling me you could not find anyone else? And this stupid you know what? Mary is a fucking nuthead, right? Maybe she deserved her death. I'm joking, that's a joke. But God, like, uh, really, you're just gonna do that? You're just gonna fall in love like that? And it didn't make any sense, and it didn't even lead to anything. It was not like that moves the plot forward. Like Winston's gonna like, oh, betray Michael, love prevails. I'm happy it wasn't that, by the way. That would have been infinitely worse. That would be shit. And like once Michael says, I'm gonna make you the Godfather, stop fucking my daughter. I mean, it's never implied that they fuck, but yeah. And Winston's like, Mary, we can't be together anymore. So that's great. Completely forgettable. Something which you remember. Oh yeah, that was a real thing in the movie, and then you remember. Wait, why was it a thing in the movie? It's just so forgettable. It's just so not needed. It's so nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have to be in the movie. How did you make a 3 hour movie so feel so useless? Like the Godfather one. Okay, my main issue with the first Godfather, which I watched a couple of long before I was doing the YouTube thing. Um, it's long. I don't like that, but each minute feels important. Like you feel like there are things which you should be paying attention to. There's dialogues you have to pay attention to. Godfather 2 is a separate thing. I actually have put up a video on that. Make sure to check it out. But this just felt like I don't really have to care. I can just sit and watch. And yeah, it was not up to any kind of standard which the Godfather movies have set. Like, no one's going to remember it. I don't think anyone does. Everyone always talks about, everyone knows The Godfather. Everyone. It's on the top list of God knows how many movie. Everyone. The filthy casuals who don't even watch movies. They watch one movie a month. They know about The Godfather, right? And then you have The Godfather 2, which is considered one of those rare cases where sequels are better than the original. And I do agree Godfather 2 is better than the original. And then no one will remember Godfather 3. And it's so sad because this movie came out in 93. And it's true. Like, only people who decide to, okay, Godfather, like people like me who are like, okay, I have to see Godfather 3 because I watched 1 and 2. Yeah, it's so forgettable. And it's just really sad how this is the last movie we have of The Godfather. And I think it should be that way. I don't think we need more stories. Like, even if they make a new Godfather movie, it's gonna either retcon the whole thing or it's gonna like show the next to next generation, next to next to next to next generation of how things are working in Italy. And I think it's fine that Paramount has the rights as long as they don't milk it for things, which they probably will actually. It's probably going to be a TV show called The Corleones, Friends type sitcom. God, I can't imagine. That just it made me feel repulsive for a second. And yeah, that's all I have to say about this movie. It's not a good movie. It was not as bad as the internet was telling me. It was not as bad as I was expecting it to be. I was hearing absolute shit about this movie. but it's not good either. That's the thing. It's just a mid movie. Is it a mid movie? I feel like it's slightly worse than average. No, I feel like it's average. You know what? The Godfather Part 3 is mid. Like I think that's what I'm going to title this video. It's mid. Like it is not good. It is not bad. It is bad, slightly worse than mid for the sole reason that it is a Godfather movie. Other than that, if you're talking about just the Godfather Part 3, it is a mid movie. Do I recommend you watch it? I don't know. I discussed some very important things in this. I kind of spoiled also a few things. So, I'm sorry for that. Sure, go ahead and watch it if you have watched the first two parts. Don't watch this movie. I don't know why you would be watching this movie anyway. You know what? It's fiction. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. That's how you subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at TimayaPU. Link will be in the description. And comment down below what you thought about this movie, if you liked it, if you didn't. And yeah, I guess I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.